Welcome to The Explainer. I'm absolutely thrilled you're here today because we're jumping right into a deep dive on one of the most famous and honestly most misunderstood titles in all of history. We've all heard the phrase Son of God, but today we're not just looking at it from a historical or cultural angle. We're zeroing in on the source text to uncover what Son of God means specifically in God's sight.
So what does that actually mean? It's super easy to look at this through our everyday human lens, right? You hear father and son, and your brain instantly goes to biology. A father exists first, then comes the son. But the source material reveals a radically deeper, far more specific meaning than just a basic biological timeline. This isn't just a metaphor. It's a phrase packed with massive theological weight.
To really get to the bottom of this, we're going to break it down step by step. We'll start by defining the divine nature, then look at an eternal heavenly relationship, see how the Son reveals the invisible God, touch on the perfect sacrifice, and finally, wrap it all up with a definitive meaning in God's sight.
All right, part 1. Defining the divine nature. Okay, we need to clear up a massive misconception right out of the gate. Think about a human son. A human son is created, right? He naturally possesses a human nature, but the biblical account does not describe Jesus as being created that way. Instead, as a divine son, he is entirely uncreated. He possesses the literal nature and character of God himself. It's like this. Just as a human son shares the exact DNA of his father, the theological framework asserts that Jesus carries the exact same divine nature as the Father.
And that brings us to the core definition. Son of God is absolutely not a statement of weakness. It's not about being inferior or, being some sort of second in command. The text shows it as a revelation of absolute divinity and complete equality with God. The title doesn't establish a hierarchy where the Son is just taking orders. It establishes a shared, equal nature.
To back this up, look at John 10:30, where Jesus literally says, "I and my Father are one." And the truly fascinating part here is the historical context. The religious leaders of that time, they knew exactly what he was saying. Actually, if you look at John 5:18, the text points out that when Jesus called God his Father, the leaders recognized he was making himself equal with God. They didn't hear a guy claiming to be a lesser subordinate. They heard a direct, undeniable claim to absolute divinity. Moving on to part 2, an eternal heavenly relationship. So this part of the source material explores the pre-existence of the Son. We're talking way before he ever stepped foot on earth. Before creation even happened, Jesus already existed with the Father. John 1:1 calls him the eternal Word, saying the Word was with God and the Word was God. Then, tracking forward through time, he becomes the prophesied Messiah in the Old Testament. Think of Isaiah 9:6, which foretells a child who would literally be called the mighty God. And that whole timeline builds right up to a pivotal public introduction at Jesus' baptism. Right, so at this baptism, this is in Matthew 3:17, God actually speaks from heaven. He says, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." Now, why do this so publicly? Well, the historical framework explains that God introduced his Son to showcase 4 very specific heavenly qualities to the world: perfect unity, divine love, heavenly authority, and eternal fellowship. It was literally heaven going on the record, publicly revealing who Jesus truly is, way before the crowds fully caught on. Which brings us to section 3, revealing the invisible God. Now, shifting to his earthly mission, the source text sets up a massive problem. Humanity was a profound disadvantage. Because of sin and spiritual darkness, people simply couldn't fully understand God. There was this barrier, a thick veil that completely prevented humanity from seeing or grasping the true nature of their Creator. God was essentially hidden behind all that spiritual darkness. But here is the ultimate solution. God sent Jesus into the world to be the visible revelation of an invisible God. John 14:9 nails this perfectly. Jesus says, "He that hath seen me hath seen the Father." The Son literally became the physical, tangible image of the hidden God. He stepped right into humanity's darkness to turn the lights on. So what exactly did people see when they looked at the Son? Well, through Jesus, the account reveals that humanity could finally, clearly see God's heart. They saw his profound love, his endless mercy, his perfect holiness, his willingness to sacrifice, and of course, his absolute power. All these incredible aspects of God that were previously hidden, they were put on full, spectacular display through the daily life and mission of the Son.
Okay, part 4, the perfect sacrifice.
To really grasp the ultimate purpose behind this earthly mission, we have to follow the text's theological logic step by step. First, sin fundamentally separated humanity from God. Second, because of that massive gap, no ordinary human, literally, no matter how good they were, could possibly carry the weight of the whole world's sins. Third, because of that, God had to send his own son, someone entirely sinless, holy, perfectly obedient, and carrying full divine authority. And finally, because he is the Son of God, his sacrifice carries eternal value. His blood uniquely has the absolute power to cleanse all sin.
The text makes such a powerful point here. The Father didn't just outsource this to an angel or a random representative. He gave his beloved Son. Romans 5:8 says, God commendeth his love toward us, in that, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. The absolute greatest revelation behind the title Son of God and the cross itself is God's unimaginable love, completely intertwined with his perfect justice.
And finally, Section 5, Meaning in God's Sight. This brings us to the absolute climax of our explainer today. We are looking at what this all means from heaven's own perspective. Let's pull everything we've learned together. In God's sight, calling Jesus the Son of God isn't just some casual label. It specifically reveals his divine identity, his seamless unity with the Father, and his heavenly origin from before the universe even existed. It's a bold declaration of his absolute authority over creation, his mission as the Savior, his perfect obedience, his crazy sacrificial love, and his eternal kingship. That is the complete, big picture view. The central thesis of this whole theological framework really draws a hard line in the sand. It makes it crystal clear that Jesus isn't just some good prophet. He's not just a historical teacher handing out nice moral guidelines. He is the eternal Son who came down from heaven with one singular divine mission: to completely bridge the gap and bring mankind back to God. And honestly, that leaves us with this incredibly powerful final thought from Matthew 27:54. Truly, this was the Son of God. Based on everything we've dug into today, the title Son of God is ultimately heaven's absolute highest declaration that Jesus Christ is the divine Savior. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question. Do you view this title as just some ancient cultural phrase, or do you recognize it as heaven's ultimate declaration of who he truly is? Thanks so much for hanging out with me today to unpack this, and as always, keep on learning.